Welcome back, or rather good evening, and thanks so much for joining us. We hope you had a wonderful weekend, and this is the Monday edition of ANN7 Prime with me, Cindy Mabi. Our top story this half hour: problems for iPad boss Robert Mcbride seems to be compounding. A case of assault was laid and is being investigated at the Norwood police station against Mcbride. This comes after his 15-year-old daughter spoke publicly about how Mcbride allegedly beat her up and strangled her over some disagreement. The incident allegedly occurred on the 19th of August, which Mcbride has dismissed as a domestic affair of a father reprimanding his child. However, the daughter spoke to EWN saying this assault must not be swept under the carpet, as it was not the first beating she has taken from her father. Initially, when the story broke over the weekend, it was feared the daughter was being used by those plotting the downfall of Mcbride. However, in her interview, the girl is adamant that this has nothing to do with her father's job or reputation. Mcbride's daughter conducted an exclusive interview with EWN, telling her side of the story. She says, and I quote, "I don't want it to be swept under the carpet because of who he is. It happens all the time. Whenever he's got a chance to argue with me or fight with me, he would end up hitting me, throwing me against things, or banging my head into things or whatever," end quote. And here's what Mcbride says about the assault allegations. He says, and I quote, "I admit that I admonished one of my daughters, whom I love very much. I found a letter written by my daughter which suggests possible experimentation with drugs and self-harm. I express concern about all this," end quote. And joining us on the line is, or rather in studio, Udo Fuze. He's an independent political analyst. And you're most welcome to give us a call on 011-542-2186. Matapelo is on the line. Good evening to you, and thanks for joining us. What do you make of the story?
Hello.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I'm saying your views on this, the latest developments against the iPad boss, Robert Mcbride.
I am Brigadier Matapelo Peters. I'm the Gauteng Provincial Head of Communication in the police. At this stage, we are investigating a case of common assault against a female minor. Unfortunately, we are not at liberty to confirm or disclose the identity of either the suspect or the victim because the case is under investigation.
Yes, Brigadier, but in terms of the confidence that the complainant seems to lack in the police, saying that she is aware of the stature and the influence of Robert Mcbride and she doesn't want this matter to be swept under the carpet, what are your concerns if this is a perception held by the complainant?
As the police, we view this in a very serious matter. The case is actually being handled by our Family Violence, Child Protection and Sexual Offences Unit. Our Gauteng Provincial Commissioner has gone on record to say that we treat crimes against women and children very, very seriously. So we are doing all in our power to make sure that we investigate this case thoroughly, and the outcome of this will determine the next step.
And Brigadier, what is the protocol generally if there is a complaint of abuse or a violation of someone else's rights? Is it not to arrest the person who is implicated? What is the general procedure?
It becomes different in a sense where if, say, for instance, a complainant or rather the police found the act of the incident of crime in progress, then you can arrest. But if it is a case that was reported later, then we need to investigate thoroughly and take statements from the victim as well as the suspect. And the outcome of the investigation by our FCS unit, which always does a thorough job, will then determine the direction of such a case.
Yeah, what are the time frames? Sorry, I know that you have to obviously do everything diligently, get the necessary evidence and statements as well. In a case where a victim, hypothetically speaking, may feel victimized even further or even harassed, what happens if they choose or rather are forced to withdraw the case?
We always encourage victims not to withdraw the cases once they've come up to the police. So, as I indicated, we are in close contact because this is a female minor. We are communicating with those around her, the adult people that are responsible for her, and we are advising them accordingly. We are doing our part as the police to make sure that nothing is left unturned.
Can you just clarify exactly what your investigation entails and the charges that you're looking to institute?
Ma'am, I cannot disclose much about the case, except that the case that was registered was a common assault. So we are investigating a common assault case against on a female minor, and we have taken statements. Whatever the contents of the statements are, we can unfortunately not comment on publicly.
All right, Brigadier, thanks so much for your time. Brigadier Matapelo Peters, Gauteng South African Police Service spokesperson, sharing with us, their processes. Of course, we have to respect the investigation going forward. Udo Fuza is a political analyst and contributor. Good evening to you, and thanks for joining us. I mean,
pleasure.
Mr. Mcbride is no stranger to controversy or even run-ins with the law. His denial suggesting that this is part of a larger plot for his demise or to tarnish his reputation. Your view?
Well, he seemed to attract controversy for a long time already. He was, right at the beginning, he was with the Mcbride bombing. He was seen as being the #1 attack on Mcbride, where people died, which is unfortunate. And then he's had many other little skirmishes here and there with alcohol and whatever. That was what the media reported. At the same time, I feel quite uncomfortable discussing family matters, because family matters, like with Dr. Grace Mugabe and her sons and that model that she so-called beat up, the situation with Robert Mcbride and his family and his daughter, teenage daughter at the vulnerable age of 15, with drugs, experimenting with drugs possibly, could be true, could not be true. So we are actually speculating. And speculations are not always very healthy. And particularly when it comes to internal family matters, a family has to sort itself out. There's no way that a family can be on a center stage, like in a boxing ring with Mayweather, and next thing you go and comment on such. We are not entitled to do that at all, in fact.
Yeah, no, I understand that. It's obviously very sensitive. We have to protect the complainant here and not also infringe on the both complainants on the legal processes. But for her, she went on a public radio station and spoke on length that it wasn't because she was coerced in giving the statement, but she wants to give her side of the story because of the fear that this could potentially be concealed and nothing would come off it. She complains of a perennial problem of being beaten up. So, and himself being a public figure and head of the police, or IPID, who's supposed to hold the police accountable, is something that we need to scrutinize.
Well, that certainly knocks him in his position, I would think. At the same time, why would she wash family linen out in public? It's not good. It doesn't reflect good on her at 15. How can a 15-year-old be so cunning to do what she's doing? That is my question.
I don't know if it's being cunning necessarily, or in terms of protecting her rights and stopping the abuse. So she took the initiative and went to lay a charge at a police station. Isn't that what we talk about when it comes to eradicating society of social ills like abuse and physical violence?
Is there not a whole family involved? Doesn't he have a wife? Doesn't he have a girlfriend? Doesn't he have an auntie, a mother, a grandmother, whoever? Can they not sort it out as a family, or must they go into the media to sort it out through the media? I think it's just distasteful.
Well, I'm not sure about the interview itself. Of course, it gave us a little bit more insight into the very tumultuous and it seems like a toxic relationship in the household, him being accused of anger issues and rage and not being able to control or even, as a parent, deal with issues in a loving and nurturing kind of environment. One thing aside, but I think in his image, though, surely this would have a blemish on his character.
It would have, if found guilty, definitely would have to sort things out and take extended leave possibly and take a step sideways, whichever way. But until such time this has happened, we have got no evidence of the reality there, because none of us was present when it happened. It's very difficult to be the judge, to be the commentator on something like that.
All right, we're taking calls 011-542-2186. Brian is calling us from Katlehong. Good evening to you, Brian.
Good evening, Cindy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. And also your panelist. Good evening, boss.
Good evening.
What's your comment or question, Brian?
Okay. Cindy, my take is this. I think as parent, I don't want to sound as if maybe I'm condoning the action of Mr. Mcbride. But as parents, we need to be cautious. We need to treat our children with cautious, because now, as I follow the case, this child is like that she was trying to experiment with drugs. And Mcbride, as a parent, was concerned. And he was trying to admonish his daughter. And now, the case now is in the media, because remember, Mcbride is under pressure. There are infighting within the police system. And let us be careful that we don't deal with the issue that Mcbride was trying to address as a family issue. And now the issue now becomes an issue of the employment where Mcbride is working. Let's be cautious there, when I think.
Yeah,
That's
but Brian, I appreciate it. But I'm also saying we live in an era of the protection of the rights of the child, and that's why corporal punishment had to be abolished in this country, because, there are other ways of dealing with dispute or disagreements, Brian, and I'm not judging, as all of us are none the wiser in terms of the details of this case until it is before court. Are you saying that there should not have been a charge laid by the daughter, that this is an internal matter that should have been ventilated in that space?
Cindy, because of a lot of social issues that are happening in our South Africa nowadays, Cindy, children, they lack respect, children are experimenting drugs, children are drinking alcohol. And remember, myself also, I'm an educator, I understand. I know corporal punishment is abolished. There are a lot of issues that we come across, especially in school. We can't even solve the learners. Because once you address the issue with a learner, that is a corporal punishment, you understand? Now, if maybe you are in the shoes of Mcbride was trying to admonish her daughter. Now, what's happening? I don't want to sound as if maybe when I think I'm condoning his actions. His actions are wrong. But I'm saying let us be careful, because now we are saying to our children, you must have a right to do any wrong, because you are not going to be admonished. We grew up being admonished by our parents. Even at school, when we were still going to school, we would be admonished. Like the case that happened with the wife of Zimbabwean president, Mcbride, of admonishing the children who were drinking and smoking drugs with her children. You understand?
That's a very tricky one. No, I hear you, Brian. Thank you so much. We have Bongane from Soweto. Good evening to you.
Good evening, ma'am. How are you?
I'm well, sir. How are you?
I'm very fine, and your panel there.
Good evening.
Ma'am, South Africa is as it is right now because of these endless rights without responsibility and accountability. Our society and especially our families have been torn asunder because of these laws. The Christian Bible says you spare the rod, you spoil the child. A lot of evil things are happening in our societies, and we as parents, we can't even punish our children. A little bit smack won't do any harm. Today things are going upside down because there is no more respect and discipline. And what is going to happen between Mcbride and her daughter after the whole ugly scenario? How will be the relationship? No, good people, we seem to be turning South Africa into a hell. We must consider bringing some of the issues and the things which we used to practice in the past. Madam, this is hell in South Africa. Children are doing things which we cannot explain, we as parents. So I'm just wondering what will be the relationship between Mcbride and her daughter after the whole mess which is happening right now.
Yeah, but thank you so much.
Into the shoes of Mcbride. What are you going to do? Forget about the laws of the country.
I really appreciate it. And I think that puts another dynamic where ourselves as parents, what would you do in a situation where you felt that your child was being wayward or irresponsible and you needed to bring them back in line, as it were?
Well, I was seriously shambocked as a youngster. My dad has never spared any rods
It
at
makes
all.
the both of us correct, yeah.
Yes. I think
can
there was common
relate.
cause throughout the country. At the same time, I recall in the olden days, even in the townships, the whole street was the parent for the child that was roaming around there. So the neighbors would discipline the children as well. So you had a very high moral standard. I think that moral standard is being eroded particularly through drugs. The skotanis, the nyaupis, there's so many things that are alcohol, as the gentleman before us mentioned just now. So how do you handle this as a parent, particularly a parent who is a high-profile parent, a parent who has severe pressure at work, who's constantly in the public limelight? He has to buckle under the pressure, like the First Lady of Zimbabwe. How can you allow somebody who brings drugs to your children?
But the law is the law. I mean, I understand with
Of
all the
course.
other peripheral areas in terms of religion or what it is that you...
But it should not destroy the family.
Yeah, your doctrine as to how you raise your children. But the law is the law. And if there's a serious case of assault, it needs to be investigated.
Indeed.
Hold the thought, Udo. We have Vanessa on the line from Emalahleni. Hello to you, Vanessa.
Hi, Cindy. Yes, I'm just phoning to say my kids, when they got detention at school, they got the same at home, and they were always told 6 of the best or detention for a month at home. And they always chose 6 of the best with a wooden spoon, but I'm a woman, a single parent, and I gave it to them. But let me tell you one thing. The kids are not being brought up in the right way. I promise you now, a good spanking brings up a child in the right way. There are no boundaries. There are absolutely no boundaries left in this country. And as far as even corporal punishment, smack a child at school, give them 6 of the best. We didn't turn out too badly, you know. And that's what I maintain. And as far as the law goes, if a parent sexually abuses, yes. But if he's going to give his kid a club because they're taking drugs, I'm sorry, give that kid a club and a half, as far as I'm concerned.
A klap laat die snot vaai, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cut his head right off his shoulders.
Now, Vanessa, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Okay,
but of course, the
Cindy.
difficulties is that with the law enforcement, Brigadier Peters, is that you have to now look at the evidence, whether it was essentially about reprimanding to get the child back into the right path, or whether it was excessive abuse, in your view. How do you determine that?
Cindy, when we investigate cases, we look at 4 elements that satisfy the requirements of a crime. So once we investigate and we find that these 4 elements are there, then the next process would be to prosecute. So we are taking our time doing all so that we do a meticulous exercise and we do justice to the process. We cannot judge. Ours is to enforce the law. A case has been opened, it is the responsibility of the police to investigate. So at this stage, we are satisfied that the process is flowing within the confines of the law. As I indicated, the outcome of this investigation by the Family Violence, Child Protection and Sexual Offences Unit will determine the direction that this whole matter will take.
Please stay on the line, Brigadier Peters. We have Mabatu from Potchefstroom. Good evening to you. Thanks for calling. Hi, Mabatu.
Hi, Cindy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. Hey, Cindy, I'm really disturbed about this issue of children not who does not want to be, punished or yes, because the thing is that there's this children, they are finally going to control us. They are taking an advantage. And sometimes, they are doing some odd things that are silly. And as a parent, you react in such a way that you beat the child, in a way that you find it's not a good. So I think this theme of the law regarding the child being punished, it should be reviewed. And otherwise, we are not going anywhere.
Mabatu, I think it would, thank you so much. Brigadier Peters, I think you could empower a lot of the parents that may feel helpless in a situation where they're wanting to correct a wrong behavior from, done by their teenage children and find themselves on the wrong side of the law. Guide us in that sense. How then do you administer punishment without necessarily going overboard?
Well, Cindy, just listening as a parent myself to the panel and the callers, I'm sure we'll agree that times have changed. What used to be correct in the past is no longer the same now. But we as the police would always advise to things like beating, it should really be the last resort, because sometimes as parents become so over-emotional that you find that sometimes parents will tell you they had a blackout. They don't even remember that they beat a child that severely. So we would really like to advise parents that try and continuously talk to children, monitor their behavior, see if there's any changes in them and try and talk to them. And if you can't help, even not the police, the Department of Social Development, even though police also have social workers, try and speak to experts if you feel that perhaps maybe as a parent you are overwhelmed, you cannot, before you really go the route of beating the child or spanking the child, because children of nowadays don't even understand a spank. They feel like this is corporal punishment. I'm going to report you to the 10-111, and then the law must come in and take its course, unfortunately.
Please stay on the line, Brigadier. We have Elvis in Mpumalanga. Good evening to you.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, ma'am, I feel very hurt about this case that you are talking about, not because Mcbride has done wrong, but because nowadays kids or children have got a license to do whatever they want. My own kids couldn't agree when I sent them, but they had the right to insult me and to talk to each other and say, Dad is coming, let's go and kill him inside the house because he's not able to do what we want to do. I had a very difficult experience with my own kids. And you know, when you talk to police, they just say they are kids. But if it's a parent who has disciplined a kid, the police don't say he is a kid. They quickly open a case and press a charge. We as parents, really, we are no longer anything because of child's protection. I think we are parents, we should be guiding our own children, we should be disciplining them like it happened in the past. But nowadays, the kids can kill. I was barricaded in a room by my own kids with spades.
But Elvis, I hope, has that situation been resolved now, and how did you go about it?
No, I had to phone the police from my own room. They came and rescued me. But for that, nothing was done. They just say, they are kids. And it's very painful. I really feel Mcbride has done a better thing by disciplining her own daughter. But the presence of law or
Yeah, sorry, Elvis, we're losing you there. And we assume innocence on both parties, of course, until proven otherwise. Udo, on your view, that it may be considered as mitigating circumstances if you give the rationale behind your action as a parent, that of wanting to correct as opposed to harm?
It's your duty as a parent to correct, first of all. But you see, not every home is actually a home. Not every parental home is a protective home. Social circumstances don't allow that. Poverty doesn't allow that. Structural poverty is even worse. And to live in shacks and raise children in shacks, to give child grants for young mothers in their teens to give birth, to then go out partying with that money from the grants. All of that is a very sick society. We're living in very dangerous times today, where the truth becomes the lie and the lie becomes the truth. And to live in such circumstances, a family has to be the anchor, the foundation of all concerned in that family. And if the family is not stable, there's nothing. Then the society falls apart. Yeah,
Brigadier, we're assuming a lot, of course, but if you'll just give us a sense in terms of the timelines and whether the general or universal approach has been applied even to Mr. Mcbride, as it would any other citizen who's been found or have allegations of abuse against them or assault.
Cindy, I can assure you that as the police, we have our systems in place that we follow. As I indicated in the beginning, that this was registered as a case of common assault. So the first thing to do is to go to the complainant and go, because in this case, the complainant was not the victim. So it then becomes important for the police to interview the victim, to interview the complainant, and to check history as well, whether there have been such incidents before. And there's a whole lot of work that goes into such investigations. And whether it is Mr. Mcbride now or any other member of the public, all cases are handled the same.
All right, Brigadier, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks indeed for your time. That's Brigadier Matapelo Peters, Gauteng spokesperson for the South African Police Service. Udo Khoza is an independent political analyst, and you at home, your calls are much valued. Thank you so much for sharing very intimate and difficult circumstances around the parent and child relationship when it comes to discipline. Thanks indeed for that. We're back after this break.